everybody. It has apparently only been 4 days, but it actually feels like it's been way longer. Wow, it's way too dark on the stream. Okay, I will be right back. I'm gonna turn the light back on. Then I could get away with having it off. But... Okay. Yeah, that looks way better. My settings are all different because I haven't streamed in a while. I also have a different table thing that I'm putting my laptop on. I'm going to see how that works out. I'm noticing at the moment that I can't quite get the bobbin in view. And I'm showing you a great view of my floor also. Oh well though. So we're going to start off by doing a little bit of fiber prep. Reason being, I really want to test out this stuff. It looks quite brown on camera. That's not shocking. It's I don't really know how to describe the color. It's sort of like a skin tone pink. Like it actually matches my skin tone at the lightest parts. It's not really brown. It's not really pink. It's sort of halfway in the middle. I think it's really nice. I quite like the color. So this stuff that's on the bobbin, it can't be used. Or it can be used, but it shouldn't be used, I suppose, because I did a secret stream, I think like a week ago, maybe, I don't know, testing this out before I did any of this stuff on stream, and I ended up turning that into a little sample and plying it, and then turning that into a washcloth, and then putting that washcloth through the washer and dryer. And what I found was that the stuff that I had dyed black, it looked like it had been put through the ringer after one single wash, where in comparison, the undyed stuff looked completely fine, totally unchanged. So that says to me that if I made a blanket with that in it, I would be very sad very quickly, like literally within one wash. So we're certainly not going to use it for a blanket. But what I'm hoping is that this stuff, which never saw any iron, might be better. The reason I think it might be better is really just a hunch. I've destroyed wool with iron before, first couple of little, and only for a short period of time. And in my excitement to dye this cotton, I made the same mistake I made in the past with wool, which was adding way too much. In this case, I only left it in there for like 20 seconds, but I think that was enough to really destroy it. One of the reasons I think that is because I did sort of a gradient, and the light gray was okay, but the darker it got, the worse it fared in the wash. So that's why I think that. And the darker stuff obviously was exposed to iron for longer, whereas the lighter stuff was typically all sort of inside the cotton bundle, and so it didn't get anywhere near as exposed. But yeah, this stuff never ever touched any iron. I'm gonna do 3 passes maybe. It's already looking a little more promising. When I was trying to card the iron stuff, it was just like a nightmare. This feels pretty normal, although 2 was not enough to get it perfect. 3 is also not enough to get it perfect, but I'll be here all day carding this one bit. So all my stuff. kind of too bad because I really love the color and I distill a fair amount of it. So that's rough. But I mean, this giant cotton is incredibly cheap. If nothing else, it's not like I have to throw it away. I definitely don't have to throw it away. I think, I think I could just use it as stuffing. I was looking for one of my thinner knitting needles to use, but I guess I'm not going to find it. That's okay. So, yeah, basically, I will not get the answer to this question of whether or not the avocado dyed stuff, which is what I'm currently working on, whether that's going to be okay until I make a swatch and wash it. So we're only going to test a little bit, and then if we have time after spinning and plying everything, then we'll just get started on some undyed stuff because we know that works, right? Oh man. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, we know that works, so that's the plan until I figure out whether or not my dyeing has truly gone. My dyeing has truly gone horrifically awry. I'm happy with the colors I got. It's kind of a first that I've been really happy with the colors, but unhappy with the result nonetheless because I kind of ruined it. Usually, if I don't like the result, the colors have also gone wrong. But that's okay. Yeah, either way. I think I'm going to use the darker stuff to stuff a cat bed for my cat. She's laying on my bed, which is just within leaning reach, so I'm gently bothering her. Yeah. Anyway, it'll all get used. I can certainly buy more cotton. That's not a huge issue. This is one of the cheaper things I bought recently. But it does kind of suck because we have put a fair amount of time into both dyeing and then spinning already some of the darker stuff. So finding out it's kind of wrecked is a little rough. I honestly am not even sure if I should ply this, but I figure at this point it can't be used for stuffing in its current incarnation. And like I might as well get kind of a crappy bag out of it. You know, I've already spun the damn stuff. Plying it is not exactly the big time sink here. It's the spinning and the prepping. So yeah, I'll probably turn it into a little bag or something, throw that through the wash. Although actually I'd been planning on putting this all on the same bobbin and then making the same thing out of it. That won't work if I want the bag to stay intact. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. But I'll, you know, like I said, we'll be moving on to the undyed stuff to actually, you know, get started for real this time. It's just a practice run the first time, obviously. I really can't believe it's only been 4 days since my last stream. It's starting to think maybe I just read it wrong because I feel pretty out of practice, which is okay. I am remembering that I had actually been rolling these using my cards, and I want to go back to doing that because it's a hell of a lot easier. And because I hadn't really figured it out. And I would like to, it seems faster. But I am going to sort of do the easy mode thing and roll it with my hands and then just sort of fluff it with the cards. Fluff it is entirely the wrong word. What I'm actually doing is compacting it, but it makes it look nicer in a way that like fluffing your pillows makes them look nicer. So that's why my brain jumps to that word, but it's not correct. Okay, that's two. Well, I suppose we'll do a few more. Why not? I am still noticing that the inner stuff, which is lighter in color, because even though this avocado dyed stuff was literally in the dye bath for multiple days, um, despite that, it's still pretty clear that it was barely penetrating through. Um, it needed all that time to color the inside at all. And I had also I didn't just put a big lump in like I did with the darker stuff. With this, I actually sort of flattened it out so that it wasn't very dense. And even so, this happened, which is interesting. I thought that maybe using the proper mordant would fix that. Um, but I think it's really more just about how cotton works than about the mordant. I guess it must be. But yeah, anyway, the darker, the more dyed sections do have sort of a worse texture, whereas the more inner sections, which are lighter, which are less dyed, have a better texture, like softer, um, generally nicer. So all of this is making me think that I really just should not be trying to dye it as yarn, or as fiber rather, and should try to dye it as yarn. But I also haven't dyed any yarn yet, so we'll have to see how that works out too. I wouldn't mind too terribly if I kind of was forced to make a white cotton blanket. I mean, I really don't enjoy white things because they're just so much harder to keep clean and for what? It's not even colorful and pretty. But dyeing this is clearly going to take a fair amount more effort. If this were wool, I would be like, well, I'll just use some brown wool, which is no problem at all, and which is always very lovely to work with. But cotton does come in brown, but not the cheap stuff. Whereas with wool, um, usually Shepherd's brown fleeces are the ones you can get for cheaper, because they can't really sell those for dyeing. They have to be used the color that they're at. So if you don't like brown, you're not gonna like that fleece. I really like brown though; it's one of my favorite colors. This third puni, I'm only doing 2 passes on. I would love to know if that third pass matters or not, because I don't want to do it. So if I can get away with not doing it, I will. So we'll try and see if this one is any worse than the other two. But look at this. So we have this scrunkly, very messed up puni, and if I simply, let's get that nice in frame. There we go. If I simply do this, even just once, it's already much nicer. If I do it a few times, it just gets perfect. It's a hell of a lot better than it was, right? Okay, we'll start with those 3. We'll see if we want to proceed any further. I also have a drink that I wish to drink. And for once, I'm remembering to actually shake it. Usually I forget with these things, and then because there's no room to shake them, I just kind of awkwardly stir them with a knitting needle. But for once, I don't have to. I don't have to live that way. Okay. Try to drink as little as possible in terms of alcohol, just because I already did the whole alcoholic thing for several years, and it was terrible. But sometimes you have a really bad series of days at work with no end in sight, and it's like I could use a little help relaxing. And that is the case today. So we're going in order of the order in which we carded them. Oof. This is not. I was hoping it'd be easier to spin but I don't feel like it really is. I feel like it's clumping the same way that the other one is. However, this very first one I did roll using the knitting needles, and I noticed I was having a much easier time if I just rolled it like by hand and then neatened it up a little with the cards. Um, um, so hopefully the second two are a lot easier. Big piece of VM that just found its way in here. Get out of here. I'm not really sure what to think about this new camera angle. I would love it if I could actually like get to the bobbin. I guess you can kind of see the bobbin now. I don't know. I'll try and get some feedback at some point, I suppose. Um, I mean, if I have it like this, you can see the bobbin, but what you can't see, or what I can't see, is chat at all. Not that there's anybody chatting at this exact moment, but it's already a serious struggle to read chat uh, off the same computer screen that I am also using to film things. Because like I don't want the webcam pointed at my face, but I do want the chat pointed at my face. So yeah, due to that, some issues. So we'll have to see. But I do like that you can see the top of the bobbin. I guess it just, I'm not sure it matters, right? If you have any opinions, feel free to let me know. I'm going to leave it on this just for today unless I get really negative feedback about it. But I still have the other stool that I was using previously, so I can always switch back and just use this one as sort of a, put my tools on maybe. It's at a really nice height. But yeah, the problem is like the laptop screen really obscures where I want the or the laptop like frame. There we go. Really obscures where I want the webcam to be. Oh, man, this is not cooperating at all. I might just be out of practice. Could be that. Wouldn't be the first time. I seem to lose practice with things when I'm in the early stages of them, like of learning them pretty quickly. And I would definitely still consider myself in the early stages of learning how to spin, how to thick spin cotton anyway. I think I know what I'm doing when it comes to thin spinning, but thick spinning still a whole other beast. I'll have to try long drawing it because this is not working. I do like, it looks like you can kind of see my hands a little bit more. Of course, now that I'm long drawing, you'll never be able to see the back hands. But nonetheless, that's kind of nice. Yeah, long draw definitely the only way to go in this situation. My short draw method not working one iota. And that does usually work for cotton, just not as well. I don't know why I try and default to it when I know it doesn't work as well. I guess because that's my preferred technique for drafting the wool and always has been. That said, I haven't spun any wool at all since I figured out long draw with cotton. I kind of want to see if I can figure out long draw with wool. Typically what I found was that the fibers just always kind of slip past in a way that I don't want them to. But if I can do it with cotton, like it can't be that different with wool. And I imagine it's actually kind of harder with cotton, right? So I might have an easier time of it with wool. I don't know. I haven't tried it in a really long time. Like not since I first got my spinning wheel. I haven't tried it since then. And I didn't try that hard or for that long, so. That's not working. Okay. There also seems to be a trick about if you can build up exactly the right amount of twist when doing long draw, then it works perfectly. But as you can probably tell, I have a really hard time figuring out what that right amount is. It feels like it's different every time. Maybe like I'm just making a different mistake every time. I don't know. Don't know. Oh, despite the fact that this looks a lot worse, it does feel a lot easier. So it doesn't help that I've got something on my fingers sort of catching the wool. It looks like maybe a cat scratch or something. Not catching the wool, catching the cotton. I'm so used to spinning wool because it's been like years of only spinning wool for the most part. But I find myself referring to my fiber as wool, whether or not I'm spinning wool, just because that's historically what I've always spun. It's a little funny. I got spinning grease all over this. Oh well. But yeah, despite the fact that this maybe is looking a bit worse, it is feeling better. I wonder if the long draw technique is simply best on a much more open style of preparation or open style of preparation. Actually, this might be dried super glue. Sorry, it's bothering again. I was fixing a teapot with super glue, and then it turned out to be easier to smooth it over with my fingers than with anything else, so that's what I was using. And now I've had dried super glue problems for the last couple of days. Anyway, I'm wondering if it's more of a long draw thing that makes it easier when they are rolled really loosely, or what. Because I still feel like it's easier to do short draw on like a rolled puni that's really tensioned. But when it comes to these looser ones, I have just the easiest time overall spinning long draw on maybe really loose hand rolled ones. Like it's easier than short draw, so I don't know. It's not as consistent though, but consistency is usually one of those things that is less about are you technically doing it the right way and more about have you practiced enough. And I certainly haven't practiced enough, so consistency, like that's the bit that'll always come with time, consistency and speed. If you can get an inconsistent result that you love with spinning, then I feel like typically what I find is that means you can get a consistent result that you love too if you just, fail for a while and keep at it. But the failing for a while part is key. Got to fail for a while. Which is good because I'm great at failing at things, so it works out perfectly for me. Yeah, like if nothing else, even though it's not quite as pretty, I think, although frankly I'm not sure. But despite that, it is certainly going faster and it feels a hell of a lot easier. So I think I'm going to be like sort of done using those knitting needles for thick spinning cotton. I'll probably keep using them for thin spinning because like when it comes to thread, that tension really, really matters. But it doesn't seem to matter for thick spinning. At least it does not help. Now I did something different with this one and I can't remember what. I know the very first one I rolled on needles, the second two I rolled by hand. What What else did I? Oh, I only did two passes on this one, but 3 on the other 2. Okay. So what we want to know is this noticeably more inconsistent? So far, yeah, kind of. It's not great. But it's not unworkable. But I do think that extra pass is unfortunately worth it when it comes to the dyed stuff. Don't need it for this undyed cotton, but for the dyed stuff, yeah, sadly, you kind of, if you don't need it, you at least benefit heavily. Of course, now that I've kind of gotten into a groove, it's like it's still drafting easy, but even the smooth, quote unquote, smooth parts are pretty lumpy compared to the one that I carded 3 times, which aren't. And I was thinking, my original cotton summer blanket designs have all been sort of like these long, my original cotton summer blanket designs have all been sort of like these long, I don't even know if stripe is the right term, just sort of color blocks. Because I was typically using an entire skein of one color of dishcloth cotton and then moving on to the next. It's a little stripy, but mostly color blocky. But for this one, if the dyed fiber does work out, then what I could do instead is sort of like speckles and barber poles, maybe. That could be kind of interesting. Especially if I ended up for some reason wanting to keep the dyed stuff to a minimum, like if it is just a hell of a lot harder to work with, or maybe if it doesn't last quite as long, that would be at least a way to get some color in and keep it interesting while not compromising the too much of the integrity of the piece. I don't know. It's something I've been somewhat thinking about. Typically, when it comes to big projects like this, I will have ideas the whole time, and then what I end up doing after much deliberation is none of the things that I thought about, and instead something totally different that just popped into my mind. That's how it often goes. But I feel like I get something valuable just from kind of considering and thinking about it, sort of mulling the ideas over, you know. I wasn't expecting today's stream to be quite so dead. I wonder if it's because I haven't streamed in a little bit or what. But I mean, that's okay. It isn't as entertaining for me. I will say that. It's nicer when I can talk to people. But even so, I've probably already gotten farther than I would have if I was just sitting here spinning by myself with no stream. Okay, so we've spun these 3. I think that's enough for a test, and I can probably just sort of, you know, use the avocado dyed stuff as like part of a washcloth, and I have some extra washcloth bits laying around. Like I didn't end up using all of my cotton mini skeins, which is nice. So yeah, we'll probably try that. And that way I can still use the gray stuff for something that I just will try not to ever wash. I have a feeling it's also not going to do well when it comes to abrasion. Like I think that's why it doesn't do well in the wash is abrasions. It's not, it won't just, like keeping it out of the wash is not going to be enough to save it. Which is why it's such a problem. Like if if I could just, get away with hand washing the cotton blanket forever, that would still not be great because I don't want to do that. I intend to make a pretty big blanket. And I also tend to wash my cotton summer blankets pretty frequently as well. 'Cause, it's summer, it's sweaty. I keep them clean. But even so, um, just the abrasion of being on my bed and like being tangled with other blankets and stuff like that, and my cat needing it also, I think that alone is going to sort of just destroy something as destroyable as this very quickly. I don't even think it would need to go in the wash to get really gross really quickly. If you want to know what it looked like, there's some pictures on my blog, some close-ups of the fiber, but you can see it basically looks like it got like run over by a car or something. It looks really rough. I do wonder if I'm able to, like, I'll probably crochet it, just to hide as much of the yarn as possible, make it a little more durable. And I'm curious if crocheting it at a really tight gauge will matter at all, because I have noticed delicate fibers, if they're worked up in a really open way, more of the yarn surface is exposed, which means it's exposed to abrasion and all those things that destroy yarn. And so it won't last quite as long as if you use something like if you use a really small hook or a really small needle, it'll last longer. Oh, hey, Skylark. Nice to see you. Hi, Zertra. You both came in at like the exact same time. It's nice to have you in. We just finished spinning up some of these avocado dyed ones. I'm just trying to figure out if like the avocado dyed stuff is also ruined or what. I'm trying to figure out where I went wrong exactly. So with this stuff, I'm gonna add it to a washcloth and then put that through the wash and see what happens to it. Same as I did with the darker cotton. But yeah, we're just gonna ply it, and then if I have time after applying everything, which it's looking like I will, I think we're just gonna get started once more on the blanket spin, but this time just using white cotton because we know that at least works. So we'll see what happened with the avocado. Well, I don't know if anything happened with the avocado, but the first bit that I did, like the first test that I did was with it was basically just mordanted with oak gall, and then I added another iron mordant to it, and I got a really beautiful like charcoal black that I loved. But it turns out that once I made a little sample of that and put that in the wash, it almost looked like it had been tenderized, like it was linty. It was all messed up. It was totally unusable, and it's definitely not gonna make it as a blanket. So I just want to see if that's also true of the avocado dyed stuff. My theory at the moment is that the iron destroyed my cotton, whereas this avocado stuff never touched the iron. So if my theory is correct, then this should be usable, and it shouldn't get destroyed in the wash. If my theory is incorrect, then everything about my dyeing setup is currently an issue, and I should probably just hold off on dyeing for a little while. So that's the burning question today. And it's not one that we'll answer for at least a couple of days because I will have to, wait for this stuff to wash, dry, and then make a square, and then wash that, dry that, then we'll know. So yeah. You'll be on and off for a bit. You realize you forgot to eat tonight. Well, definitely eat. And no worries about being on and off. Strange. Hope it works out. Yeah, it is kind of strange. I mean, I'm not shocked that I destroyed it with iron because I've done that with wool, but I am kind of surprised. Like, I was hoping that this avocado dyed stuff would be easier to card, and it wasn't. I was also hoping it'd be easier to spin. It wasn't. Um, they're both turning out to be pretty difficult. This and the iron dyed stuff, pretty difficult to work with. So based on that alone, I'm kind of thinking I should probably make this all just like spin it all up while it's undyed. But I guess like another question I'm having is, should I even dare to dye this, or am I gonna kind of destroy it? Like once it's a blanket, am I gonna destroy it then? That would suck. So I don't know. We'll have to do some more dye experiments. I hope I can get away with dyeing it because I think it'd look a lot better, but I don't really know. I've also got a different angle for my computer at the moment. It's just sitting on something that's quite a bit higher. I'm not sure if this is an improvement or not. I would probably have swept the floor if I had realized it was going to be aimed at the floor like this. The bonus is that you can see Chuck, though, barely working down her food. Oh, hi, Chuck. But yeah, I think like it kind of lets you see my hands easier and everything like that. But I don't know if that's actually like an improvement or desired or anything like that. So I'll probably play around with both. Might have its uses, even if I don't regularly use it. It's really odd, actually. I didn't think, like, now that I'm plying it, obviously this cotton stuff, this is what I spun last stream. So it's been sitting for about 4 days. And the avocado dyed stuff that I just did, been sitting 2 seconds at that. And the avocado dyed stuff was absolute pain to chain ply. Like I was fighting it the whole time, but I'm not really fighting this gray stuff, which makes me think I really, really should rest it before I chain ply it. I don't usually rest my yarn. I like to spin it and then ply it immediately afterwards, and that's just always what I've done and what I prefer doing. But could be an argument to be made to not do that this time. Hard to say. Seems like a good angle. Love to see Chuck also. Fair enough. And thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. Chuck usually likes to sit out of frame staring at me, so she probably will not be like featured in my videos that much anyway, just because then she can't stare at me. But, occasionally it's nice to entice her over. Maybe I should put my cat grass in frame so you guys can see her eating it, which is very funny looking. It's like watching a T-Rex, like, I don't know, try and eat ants. It's kind of what it looks like. Which I feel like is a very strong mental image that does not necessarily translate to cats, but that's what it reminds me of. What can I say? She's a bit T-Rexian anyway. Her very stout limbs. And her vicious, bloodthirsty demeanor. The problem with this charcoal stuff is that it's so pretty. Like I really, really like this series of grays that I got out of it. I'm sad that it is not usable, but like I'm not even sure if necessarily plying it is worth the trouble because I know it's going to degrade pretty fast. But I figure this is the fastest way to get it off my bobbin no matter what. So I might as well. There's no point in not doing it. But man, it's so pretty. I wish it was usable. I hope I can figure out how to make it, like how to get this color without destroying the fibers like I did. Because I would like to use it, and it would make a really good dye for clothes also. This is the sort of colors I like to wear. These grays and blacks. I mean, I guess I could, at a certain point, give in and try like RIT dyes or acid dyes or whatever commercial dyes are used on cotton, but I don't know. I've gone this far without ever using environmentally destructive commercial dyes, and I don't really see the point in changing my ways now, if I'm being honest. Okay. Well, that was fast, as I had a feeling it would be, even though I put it off for several days. So we're only 41 minutes in. I mean, it'll be 45 by the time I've put this on the nitty naughty, but I think I will do at least a little bit of the white cotton spinning and making, because why not? 45-minute stream is just sort of a ridiculous length. I don't think we're going to go the full 2 hours this time, though. I am very tired, so. But yeah, we'll definitely get back into the groove. But I also don't want to just like leave an empty bobbin, so that next stream I'm faced with the daunting task of restarting my entire blanket spin. Not that I've gotten very far, but like that's not the point. It's not the problem. It's just the restarting it that's going to be hard. So I want to restart it before I put it away, if that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, it looks so pretty. It's a shame. But it feels absolutely terrible. Like, it's not soft anymore. It's not smooth at all. It's just like kind of ragged and almost like papery. So the texture aspect of this is no longer nice. I would say that. You know what the funny thing is? I started a new pair of socks this morning for my woes and my agonies, and I was I was pretty excited about getting back to this cotton spinning all day, and now that I'm doing it, I'm like, when can I work on my socks? Which does not accurately reflect my feelings about spinning cotton. I think I love spinning cotton. I just also really love knitting socks. Look at this, though. I think this is really pretty. I like the way the colors work together, too, which is wholly irrelevant, as I will have to test them separately, but nonetheless, put that to the side and we'll get back to the undyed stuff. Glad to watch however long I stream. It's been nice to hang out. Thanks. I'm glad you guys think it's pretty. Yeah, I think it's pretty too. Oh, well, I'll try not to think about it Okay, so we're back to trying to perfect the art of wow, it's like night and day. The texture difference between this undyed stuff and the dyed stuff. I didn't realize exactly how strong it was because I hadn't touched the undyed stuff in a while, but like, wow, it's crazy. Anyway, we're going to try and figure out how to really perfect the art of hand rolling these poonies instead, because I think that is leading to a much better result. And it's also physically a lot easier for me to do. So I didn't miss how hard it was to carve that dyed stuff either. This is so much easier. I feel like this could probably use another pass. I can never tell how much you'll be able to see it. It looks a little lumpy to me, but also, I mean, I don't know. It's fine. It'll be fine. So far, I have not figured out how to like roll them off the cards using just both cards and not using my hands. So I am rolling it up with my hands, but then I'm just neatening it up on the cards. And yeah, so here's what it looks like pre-neatening it up. And then the difference is quite big. One more time. Yeah, so then rolling it down the cards just a couple of times and it's just a lot smoother. I feel like in a lot of ways it doesn't really matter, but it also kind of does. Like it'll store better this way. It'll spin at least a little bit better this way. And also it is more satisfying, which is one of the most important parts. So I said papery. It's possible to make paper from rags, right? Could I have done something approaching by accident? Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting point you raise. I know that like some currency is made partially with cotton, and also some paper can be made with cotton. Like U.S. currency has, I think it's a cotton linen blend. The exact blend is probably a federal secret, but so maybe I did somehow destroy the fibers in a way that kind of tenderized them and turned them papery. I really don't know. I don't understand the chemistry of what mordanting does enough to really have much of a clue. That does make me wonder if I could make a nice paper out of this stuff, though. Not that I have any paper making equipment, but it would be cool. But it does, it actually feels very similar to a really worn US bill. Now that you've made me think about it, like it actually, it is very papery. So that's odd. I don't know. Don't know what to do with that info. Yeah, it does hold well. I'm like, the more I do these hand rolled ones, the more I'm like, this is definitely the way, at least for this particular purpose. I still think it wouldn't be great for spinning thread. I'm gonna have to try it, obviously. But my prediction is it's not gonna lead to a good thread. But it does lead to a super, super nice, like thick spun. So And it's just so much less fiddly also. I have not been enjoying the part where I have to pull out the knitting needles and roll it up. Like, that's been my least favorite part of making these ponies this whole time. So being able to do away with that feels very nice. What also feels nice is that I have finally gotten to the point with carding cotton that I can visually gauge if it's been carded enough. And that took a while. Um, I don't know how long it took me with wool. I feel like it didn't take me that long, but maybe it did. Maybe I've just forgotten because it's been quite a while at this point since I learned how to do that. But like, yeah, it took quite a few yards of finished yarn to figure out how to just like tell by eye or by feel or by anything whether or not it was done. It's always one of the interesting parts about trying to spin some new fiber is it shows you all the things that you take for granted when you're spinning your preferred fiber, which in this case is, I guess, like everything. It's just so much easier with wool. It's kind of ridiculous to me. Yards of yarn, yes. I guess if you're not used to measuring yarn in yards, the alliteration is a little more striking. I feel like this whole time I've measured it in both yards and meters because so many of my fiber arts friends use meters, and so I would just always like translate it uh, and show both when I'm posting about it. And so that has just become the default in my head. But also, since I'm American and everybody here uses yards, that's still like in my brain, the default one that I think about. Like I can convert them pretty easily at this point. But the one thing I don't like about this particular thing is that it's the ends don't get as neat because it elongates farther than the card is wide. And so everything hanging off the end gets not as much treatment. And then that means that my transitions from one pony to the next get just a lot messier than they need to be. And I think the only way to not have that happen would be to load a lot less on. But then that's slower, so I don't know if I want to do that. Also, I have managed to get so much cotton in my eyes already. So much. There's an argument to be made for wearing a respirator and safety goggles when carding cotton. Not because it's hazardous, but because it will get in your everything. I remember there was this one time when I was trying to mix together cotton, and so it was cotton sliber, of course, because this was several years ago, and then some bleached linen, like trying to mix it together on my wool cards so that I could see if I could spin either one of them easier combined than I could separate. And the answer was yeah, it's actually way easier, or at least it was for me. But like I did the first rolag inside and then realized that was a huge mistake partway through. So I went outside to do the rest of them and still ended up with so much in my mouth, in my eyes, in my hair, in my beard, in my everything. It took forever to remove. And yeah, It is actually kind of worse if you're just doing straight cotton, unfortunately. It's a little bit better than if it was just sliver. Like the gin stuff holds together a lot better. But even so, as you work with it, then it stops holding together as well. So it's kind of a moot point anyway. Yarn is a nice word too. You get like the feet. Yeah, that's true. I don't know if I pronounced any of that correctly. Apologies if not. But yeah, that's a good point. I don't like um is it fee? Feel? I don't know. I don't like that word quite as much as yarn. I get a lot of Canadian stuff, so I certainly see it translated. And additionally, I do speak French, just only Quebecois, and at this point, not well at all, not at all. So, but I don't like it quite as much. You never imagined cotton would be such a pain to card. It is. Oh, it really is. Wool is so much nicer. It's close enough. Okay, good. Thanks. Why is this one so tiny? The other ones have all been like twice as big, and then I'm doing this one, and I look down, and it's like minuscule in comparison. I feel like I loaded it the same amount. It's funny. Oh, hi, Chuck. What do you want? I think she's concocting evil plans. I have a feeling. The thing that my uh, streaming laptop is sitting on, so like it's sort of like a little table, and then it's got some shelves underneath that are open in the back. And I just saw her eyeing my beautiful cotton boonies and like trying to see if she could jump in from my bed. And she decided not to, but now I'm realizing this is not safe. My poonies are not safe there. Plotting? Oh, yeah. She loves to plot. Plotting is like one of her favorite things. She rarely follows through, which makes me think it's not even being evil that she likes, it's just plotting. So I was hanging out with my sister's cat because my sister is moving, and so I went over to their place and basically just like sat in an empty room with my sister's cat, who I am also friends with. Um, and I pretty much just played Minecraft and hung out with her. And I think like it helped a lot to distract her from the moving noises and calmed her down and everything because she wasn't freaked out at all afterwards, and she usually is really freaked out by moving. But she tried to steal my food so many times, like, and I'm not even talking about, subtle thievery. She was stealing it out of my hands. I was like, at one point, holding a piece of bread, and she just walked right up to me, grabbed it with her pointy little teeth, and ran off and like ripped it out of my hand. She's so bold and like such a thief. And she was totally unapologetic the whole time. She was mad at me for stopping her. It's really funny. It's like the polar opposite of my cat. She's not actually going to attempt anything. She just wants me to know that she could. Whereas my sister's cat is like, not only can I, but I will. And I am, and I already have, and you can't stop me. Which is unfortunately a very effective tactic. Such beautiful coonies. Would be a shame if something happens to them. Yeah, that's exactly her thought process. I feel like I'm kind of getting distracted partway through doing these and then carding them too many times, but I literally cannot even remember, so I guess I won't worry about it. But I think I did that one like 3 or 4 times, maybe. Oh well. I've already amassed quite a few, by the way. I'll have to count them as soon as I'm done with this one. But it's more than I usually do in one stream. So that's already pretty cool, pretty exciting. I have so much cotton up my nose. Hang on. The next time I get a nosebleed, I have a feeling it might be slightly more grosser than usual. Okay, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. We have 8 already. And that felt pretty fast. It was like 15 minutes. So I think let's get to 13. Feels like a good number for today. My socks have 13 stitches per needle. So 13 is the lucky number today. I might not spin all of these. We might hold some of them back for another stream, just depending on how long it's taking and how my knees feel. But do at least some of them. And I'm just really enjoying making them. Back when I carded a ton of wool roll lags, I would usually do big batches. Like I'd fill up an entire big wicker basket. And then I'd spin them all in one go. And I kind of had to stop doing that. Just because carding them all at once and spinning them all at once is just a little bit too hard on me. But this is not too terribly difficult at the moment anyway. Removing that knitting needle aspect has helped a ton. I didn't realize how hard that was until I stopped having to do it. but it's much easier now. So that's a major win for sure. Okay. God, I love cats. Yeah. I don't know what I'd do without my little criminal who lives in my home and commits so many crimes all day and all night. I would be much sadder if she wasn't living here with me. But the crime rate around here would also drastically improve. So there's pros and cons of all of it, that's for sure. I think this might be the 10th one. I've already lost it. Shockingly. Just 3 more after this, and then I can stop pulling cotton out of my nose. I don't know why it gravitates to my nose so much, but it really does. I wonder if like people who spin a ton of cotton maybe wear face masks or like bandanas or something while prepping it. I don't really think I could do that while streaming very easily because I know it muffles my speech, and I think it would definitely still do that over camera, but I might actually have to figure something out at a certain point because, yeah, there's so much cotton everywhere. There's also, my house is covered in cotton, and that is unfortunate because that's not as easy to clean at all. I was like, what is this sort of white film on my stool over here? And I ran my finger along it and realized it was minuscule cotton fibers. So, and that's like on the other side of my apartment. I mean, it's a small apartment, but it's not that far, or it's not that small. It's like all the way around the corner and everything, and it's still absolutely covered in this cotton. So that's not great. Um, Also tells me I really need to get an air filter that filters out this kind of particulate. I'm just curious if other people who spin cotton have these sorts of problems, or if I'm just doing something very wrong. It's hard to tell. You know, you have a fun hobby when it requires a respirator. So true. I feel like a lot of the really fun hobbies require some ridiculous safety equipment. Like, I loved welding. I took some welding classes in high school. I absolutely loved it. Very fun. And it requires so much safety gear. But like that's part of the fun is that you have to, you know, sort of like suit up like Darth Vader and then you get to go weld. And I also probably should have been using a respirator during uh, all the whittling that I did, especially because I would particularly pick out things with spalting, which is basically rot. And then, yeah, so I was breathing in a lot of rot, basically, which is known to cause respiratory issues, but that did not stop me. I'm not very smart about those sorts of things. But I was also the kind of guy who finger painted with heavy metal paints. So there's a theme, is what I'm saying. A bad theme. Okay, now what are we at? I think I might actually be getting a nosebleed. Um, we'll see. I have tissue sitting right next to me, but nonetheless, if my voice gets a lot weirder, it's probably because I had to stuff some tissues up my nose. Okay, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. One more. Yay! Almost there. So many, by the way. It's such a satisfying pile. That brings back a frequent question you have, which is, can you spin dust? See, I feel like the closest equivalent to spinning dust um, would be spinning dryer lint, and you can spin dryer lint. It's not easy, and it's not pretty, and there's not a good reason to do so, but you absolutely can spin dryer lint. So I think yes, in my opinion. I guess it depends on what you count as dust, right? Welding is so fun. I miss welding so much. You've spun from sliver and never had problems, but that was probably because it was sliver and not handmade poonies. It's definitely true that like you're getting the most fibers in the air not from spinning it, but from prepping it. So if you try prepping the sliver, I think you will find a similar issue to what I'm having. Like if you try prepping it with cards, I think pre-drafting it would be fine, but just the act of carding things really does like to kick stuff up in the air. Even if you're carding wool, it'll do that to an extent, just a much smaller extent. Um, I don't think it's the ginned aspect. I think it's the prepping aspect. Because when I prepped the sliver, it did a very similar thing. I just wasn't doing so much of it. That actually might be why I'm having such problems right now. Like I don't usually do 13 poonies in a row, and I have done so just now. This is the 13th one, by the way. So we're done. Thank goodness. Um, But yeah, I think it's like the sheer amount at this point. I can literally see tons of tiny cotton fibers floating through the air right now. It's not good. Um, yeah, I really actually seriously need to get some kind of like small particulate air filter, I think, or whatever size of particulate this is. I guess it's actually not that small when it comes to particulate, but nonetheless, I need to get on that. You do a bit of stained glass badly that requires at least goggles and also wood burning where you should wear a mask but you forget. Those sound fun. I love wood burning. I'm so bad at it. So incredibly bad at it, but I love it so much. Um, Stained glass sounds so cool. I always wanted to try that. I just don't think I would be able to be safe about it. But that's really cool that you do some stained glass and stuff. It's hard getting yourself to use the proper safety equipment. I'm sure it's worth it. Um, but also, it's like when you're young and kind of an idiot, it doesn't feel worth it. Oh, but yeah, I was about to say, behold, all of these. That's the most I've ever had in one go. Now we finally get to spin it. Okay. So I think the plan in that first stream was to basically fill up 3 bobbins, or at the very least 1 bobbin at a time, and then chain ply it, or maybe do 3 bobbins and traditional ply them, just depending on how lazy I'm feeling. I think traditional would be better for a blanket. In terms of longevity, I have better luck with traditional ply than chain ply. But also there's the whole winding issue that I would love to circumvent by just chain plying it. So we'll see. Either way, the first step is to fill up 1 whole bobbin. So we are just gonna get started on that. I'm sure we will not fill it all up in one day. No way. But I'm also kind of curious how many it takes, like how many goonies it's gonna take to fill up a bobbin. But I don't think there's ever going to be a good answer to that. Oh, I should tension this. Because it's just going to depend so much on like how much tension I have on the wheel and how thick I'm spinning it, and just so many different factors that it's probably going to be a different-ish number every time, even if it's in the same range. I also do have a feeling that my skeins from the first couple of streams versus my skeins from the last couple of streams are going to be really different. And due to that, I'm kind of wondering if I should hold off on starting the blanket until I've spun everything so that I can mix and match it a little better. That's not how I like doing projects like this. I like sort of chugging along at all aspects of it if I can. Like when I was making my linen blanket, I was spinning the linen, and then basically once it had dried, I would knit that in, and then spin more, and then knit that in. It just kind of makes the really big spinning and crafting projects less of a slog, in my personal opinion. I'm sure it's different for everybody, but for me, I prefer to do it that way if I can. Beautiful pile of boomies, indeed. That's also some good alliteration right there. I feel like every time I start spinning cotton, it takes me like a little while to remember, wait, that's straight up not how I'm supposed to be doing this. And then I remember how I am supposed to be doing it, and it gets better, like instantly, um, which is kind of weird. But I have noticed that that period of time where I'm doing the wrong thing very confidently is getting shorter each time. So at least there's that. Like I switched back to long draw a little quicker, although now I'm struggling. That's the other thing where if I do this chain ply, then all these thin bits, you're gonna actually see them as thin bits. Whereas if I traditional 3-ply it, it's a lot less likely that all of the thin bits will actually show up. I don't know. I mean, they're both fine. You know, they'll both lead to a good blanket. Just have my preferences. This is really speeding along though. Like now that I've gotten a little bit more comfortable just with at least the vague long draw technique, even if I'm not doing it right, which I assume I'm not, it's still just so much faster than the, I don't know entirely what I was doing. I think it was like a short, it's definitely a short draw, but I don't know if it was a short backward draw or forward draw. One of the many aspects of spinning that I still do not understand is the different draw types and what they mean and how to do each one. Like, it's actually, this is the first time I have ever learned anything other than the one draw that I know. I've used that one draw for everything for like many years. And I'm only just now learning a different one. But it doesn't come easily necessarily. Like, I definitely have to concentrate, whereas if I was just doing my usual draw, whatever that is, I don't think I would be concentrating anywhere near as much. I've seen it called the inchworm draw, and it definitely has another actual name, but the inchworm draw is the only one I remember because it does actually kind of look like inchworming along. It's an issue you heard cartoonists have. While making a comic, you get better after drawing, so you get uneven comic with the ends better than the beginning. Yeah, it's exactly like that. So true. I think like it's different than, you know, with a painting, for example. The difference between, well, one of the many differences between a comic and a painting is that typically the painting, you're working on the whole thing the whole time, just different aspects of it. So, you know, you start out with your drawing, then you might go in and just do the darkest colors and lightest colors, and you know, by the end you're doing the detail work, etc., etc. Whereas with comics, even if you do that kind of, which I don't think most comic artists do, you're still doing one square, then the next square, then the next square. And so that progression of getting better versus, you know, your initial stuff is really obvious. And also because yarn is exactly the same way, where it's like you can't really look at it as a whole once you've knit it up or anything like that. You're looking at it row by row, stitch by stitch, and you can really tell when you're worse at one part than another part. But anyway, yeah, I think that's a very apt comparison for sure. Very accurate. You need to practice long draw more. It's fun to get into that groove. It is really fun. It's like, I don't mind obviously, I don't mind the inchworm technique. I find it plenty fun, but long draw is just like, it's so satisfying to pull out the slubs and just straighten them out. Like, it is so satisfying. I love it so much. I think it's actually, with my current camera angle, you can kind of see it. Finally, you definitely couldn't on my old camera angle. And possibly if I do that. Yeah, I should have done that a while ago, actually. Yeah, I think you can kind of see it. Um, I, I have to concentrate a little bit too much on my spinning to really be able to check, but it's certainly satisfying for me to watch. I think the reason that I didn't really understand long draw or attempt long draw for, seriously attempted anyway for such a long time was that you don't seem to be able to do it on a spindle. Or at least I still can't even wrap my head around how exactly you would manage it ergonomically on a spindle, especially a drop spindle. I can kind of see it on a supported spindle, but even so, it's like, I don't think it'd be as easy or as effective. And I learned on a drop spindle. So I just, like, when I was learning to spin in general, the inchworm thing was the only thing I could get working on my drop spindle. And now that I basically no longer use drop spindles, I still find that's my go-to. I can more easily do other ones, but like, I can't do a true worsted on a drop spindle because I never figured out how to smooth it down and draft it on a drop spindle. I can do it super easy on a wheel and it's not hard. But when one of my hands is like, when my hands are set up differently the way that they are with a supported or with a drop spindle or a supported spindle, I can't quite figure it out. I just thought to check how much twist I'm adding. I think I might be underspinning this slightly, which speaks volumes about how fast I can draft it now. Because I had to do this on the slowest whorl previously, because I was drafting it so slowly. But like, I've undertwisted it slightly. So I'm kind of wondering if I might want to switch to my smallest whorl, which will go the fastest, but my wheel doesn't really work on the smallest whorl. Historically, it does not work. So I don't know if I want to even try it. I might just have to slow down a little. Hard to say. I do think that more twist is going to be better for this blanket project if I want it to really last, which I do. Like, if this blanket doesn't outlive me, I'm going to be mad. I won't know necessarily, but I'm going to be very mad. So therefore, I do feel obligated to add a lot of extra twist. I just don't have the time now because I'm drafting so much faster. Not a problem I thought I'd have. I guess I could try and take the time to do a little bit more like finishing work, like smoothing it down, and that would give me time to add more twist. That might be the way to go. because it helps with these flyaways that I'm still occasionally getting. You were thinking you don't know how you'd get that on a spindle? Yeah, I can't either. You can do long draw unsupported, but not on a drop. Not sure it's possible. It makes me feel better to hear that you're not sure it's possible either. Because I can't necessarily tell if it's just my lacking the ability to think it up, or if it actually is impossible. But yeah, I can't think of how you would do it. Like, it's just all at the wrong angle, you know? When you're working with a spinning wheel or a supported spindle, you're sort of working horizontally. Like, your yarn is going to be horizontal the way that it is now. But if you're doing a drop spindle, it's going to be vertical the whole time. And I just don't think you can do it vertically like that. Or if you can, it's beyond me. It's crazy that I've already almost done about half of the first, or more than half of the first, like row. And I've been spinning, what, 20 minutes maybe? I don't know exactly when I stopped making the Fumis, but it wasn't that long ago. I really feel like I'm speeding along here. It's really nice. It's like the polar opposite of when I was doing the linen blanket. It was just so incredibly slow the whole time. In part because it got so heavy so quickly on the bobbin that I would just have to keep, I'd either have to put an insane amount of muscle into it, which I just couldn't do, especially not with my knees, or I'd have to do it by hand, like literally spin my wheel by hand, which does not work on this wheel because the center of balance is totally wrong for that. And so it was just like every single length that I fed in felt like it was just a complete pain, and so slow and arduous. Length that I fed in felt like it was just a complete pain, and so slow and arduous. Whereas this is just like zipping along. It's so nice. You'd be willing to try, but the physics just don't math in your head. You'd need the fiber supply to take the weight of the spindle somehow. Exactly. Like that's the thing. You'd need 3 hands, or you'd need everything to work differently than how it does. I do wonder though, if maybe there is some sort of tool that would allow it to happen, like a tool that would act as your third hand. But I think that if you could find a way to sort of change what is taking the weight of the spindle, then maybe you could get it to work. But there's not enough hands. I do sometimes wonder, like, I don't know if either of you have ever been to a fiber festival or a gathering or something where they were doing the old 2 people, 1 spindle, or 2 people, 1 spinning wheel game, which sometimes is about accuracy and sometimes is about speed. But the last fiber festival I went to, we were doing that game. And I actually won it, which was that was the only game that I won, so I was very pleased with myself. Um, but it's basically, one person is at the wheel and treadles as fast as they possibly can, and the other person basically walks backward as fast as they can while drafting. And I was the one drafting and walking because I could do that back then. And it was so fast. Like I got from one end of this like warehouse room to the other within, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds of drafting as fast as I possibly could. And it was super impractical, but it made me think like, if somehow you could make this practical, this two-person spinning thing, if you could make it practical, it would be a hell of a lot faster. And so it makes me wonder, like, are there similar spindle-based two-people techniques that maybe, like, some people would pull out as a party trick in ye olden days of whatever era you can imagine, really, because spindles were in use for so long. Like, would people maybe just pull it out as a party trick or a game, or were there maybe some spinners who just preferred to spin, with their spouse, one of them doing one thing and the other one doing the other thing? I can't quite imagine how you would do it with the drop spindle, but like over the, frankly, eons of human spinning, I feel like at a certain point we might have figured something out. I don't know. I'm curious. There are so many things about spinning that I think must have been lost to time. Even though it's been practiced this whole time, it's so, like, the particularities of it are so localized. And there are so many different ways to do it that if you lose one of those ways, somebody might not think of it again for a really long time. Sounds like a hassle, yeah. The three hands comments, maybe with a distaff. True. I forgot about distaffs. I think that could work, actually. I'm kind of thinking like, that grasped technique, the grasp spinning technique that you see in medieval paintings a lot, that is always accompanied by a distaff. I feel like you could do that long draw, maybe. Maybe? That said, I do not have any understanding at all of the grasped spinning technique. I can barely even pronounce it, as you can tell. Pronouncing that P in the middle is really hard. But I think you're on, actually. The distaff maybe would make that doable. It sounds really fun. You haven't seen that before? It is really fun. If you ever have two people in a spinning wheel, you can give it a try. And the person who I was paired with, it was my friend who I went there. It was their mom. And their mom, while they are a fiber artist, they don't spin. So it doesn't even need to be another spinner, because, she was basically just like treadling as fast as she possibly could. And anyone who knows how to ride a bike can probably also figure out treadling without too many problems. But yeah, it's very fun. And I did briefly, I very briefly did a little bit of two-person spinning, not as a speed competition, but just to try and teach a friend, an ex-friend, to spin. And my friend was doing the treadling and I was doing the drafting for most of it. And that wasn't too difficult. It wasn't as easy, though, and it definitely wasn't faster. Maybe with practice it'd be faster, but it felt like, like I'd always sort of be having to hold myself back a tiny bit to wait for them to catch up, or or whatever. Whereas if I'm spinning just by myself, I just can go at my own pace. I don't have to think about that. I could see it being a doable way to spin on a treadle wheel for a person who can't treadle, though. which is actually why we were trying it. I was trying to see if maybe I had a future in spinning even when I could no longer treadle. But yeah, you need another person who's okay with just sitting there treadling at a constant pace and stopping when you tell them to, for potentially hours on end. And at that point, it's like I might as well just get a better electric wheel, right? Because it's kind of the same thing. Medieval in hand spinning. Oh yeah, that's what it's called. You might have to try that. You spin grasped occasionally. Nice. Let me know if it works. I'm very curious. I've tried grasped once or twice, but it seems to require just a lot more hand strength than I have, and it was not fun. It was very painful, and I didn't get very far. So I haven't really tried much since. Watching on your phone today, typing is hard. No worries. Honestly, I can't even read well enough to notice your technique or your spelling errors. You feel a lot got lost because it was so mundane. Who else would think about describing something everyone does daily? That's another good point. Nobody ever writes this stuff down. Whereas, like, old herbal recipes, people might write that down because it's at least it's not quite as mundane, even if it's used every day. And I think the other thing is spinning can be so intuitive, whereas those alchemy things, not quite so intuitive. Most of the stuff written down is stuff that is not intuitive from what I've found. You could sell that as a vintage walking desk or something. That's probably true. It'd be interesting. Is that one full round? It is. Look at that. Or row. I don't know what I call it. I feel like technically it's a round because it spirals. So if we're thinking of it in knitting and crochet terms, it's a round, but also it's back and forth. So maybe it's a row. It could be either way. Like it's wrapped around a cylinder, so you kind of, that's the wrong way. Kind of doesn't work. Oh, hi, Chuck. Oh, she's like squashed herself into a little corner with my blankets and a bag of yarn, just so that she can look at me very sadly and be like, hey, we could be cuddling right now, and we're not, and it's your fault. Which is true. It's all very true. No. I love when I almost lose it and then can pull it back and don't actually have to get my hook again and sort it all out. It's highly preferable to when I do have to get my hook again. That's a bit of thistle maybe, or seed pod. Actually, it kind of looks like a seed pod. Okay. Interesting. I'm always like, whenever I encounter VM, or in this case debris, I'm always like, what the hell is that? Like, I want to figure out what kind of plant it's from if I possibly can, which is so impractical and foolish. But also, like, it can be kind of a trip when you're spinning some sheep's wool or whatever, or carding some sheep's wool, and you pull out a little bit, and you're looking at it, and you realize, like, hang on, that is a plant I grew up around. Like the plant that this sheep was frolicking in is literally native to the area that I grew up in, and I recognize it on a partial bit of a seed pod alone. It's a good feeling. And so the urge to always look at the debris is still there. Of course, sometimes it's dung tags, and that's not as fun at all of a discovery. I usually skirt it pretty well, but the first couple of times that I was dealing with another person's fleece and didn't realize that you should really skirt your fleece even if it's come pre-skirted, because you're going to have different standards than the person who skirted it. First time I realized that one, it was a little gross. Holding it in my hands and everything, so I was not pleased. Yeah, it is awesome to recognize uh, plants and stuff just from bits and pieces that you find in wool. It's very fun. The last time that I took the train back to where I grew up, it's basically a straight shot from where I currently live, just a really long one. And I noticed the further south we went towards my home area, further south we went, the more plants I recognized, and the more of those plants there were. And there was just sort of this cutoff period where I stopped finding anything I didn't recognize when I was going there. Like every plant that I saw, suddenly I was recognizing all of them. And it was like I hadn't seen those plants in several years because I hadn't been home in several years. So it was just crazy seeing all them again and then realizing that I recognized them. But also on the way back, watching all of the plants that I recognized slowly dwindle and then be replaced by plants that I didn't recognize and probably never really would. That was depressing, especially because I knew I wouldn't be going back. Like I have no way to get back there right now. It's just not possible with a power chair. Um, so as far as I'm concerned, I kind of cannot ever go back there again. And I knew that when I was watching uh, all of my native plants recede from view. It was it was certainly something very emotional. I don't know, not really in a good way, but it's also one of those things where it's like you really cannot control that, so you kind of have to make your peace with it one way or another. Yeah, sorry if I got a little depressing there. Well, I did get a little depressing there, so sorry about that. You know, we're so close to 2 hours, even though I said we're not going to do 2 hours, that we might as well just do 2 hours. Because I still have it in me. At this point, it's just like, I still don't want to go over 2 hours because I have work in the morning. So I might as well go to two. I'm definitely glad I was able to card so much and spin so much in one day. And not to mention, we spent the first like half hour at least. Um, we spent the first like half hour at least finishing up the dyed stuff that was on here, which I had forgotten about until literally just now. So this might go a little faster than I think, which is a good surprise. That's tragic. Yeah, it was a bit tragic. It was definitely depressing. I mean, I miss that place and I don't miss that place. Like, well, no, I miss it unequivocally. But even if it were not for the disability, I don't know how much I could stomach going back. I have a lot of really bad memories of that place. And there's a lot of people I don't like who still live there. And so it's sort of, it's, it's home, but I don't belong there. I never really have. It's just that it's so familiar and so beautiful that I find myself wanting to go back, even though I know whether or not it's possible, it wouldn't be good for me. I still kind of want to. I think that's one of the most beautiful places on earth. Just also not a good place. And I really miss my volcano, I'm not gonna lie. I grew up under a volcano. It's an active volcano. It's a beautiful volcano. I love that volcano. It feels weird not living under an active volcano. I'm like, what about the constant threat? Where did it go? Why isn't it here? It's not right for there not to be a constant volcano threat. Come on. And like, it's not that it was a high threat. Like, it was a dormant volcano, or no, dormant's the wrong word, because that's the opposite of active, right? But it was sleeping anyway. It wasn't like actively smoking and smoldering. It just had the potential to, in a way that some of like a lot of volcanoes don't, at least as far as I understand it. It's listed as active anyway, so. And we were all told it was active, and we knew it could technically blow at any time. And still could, I guess. I don't know, I just missed the thing. I miss the place, not the people. Well, yes and no. I mean, technically, yes, that is exactly correct. But also, like, the place is so ingrained in the people, and the people so ingrained in the place, that it's not really possible to separate one from the other in the way that you might be thinking of, Like, the last time I was there, I spent a really long time looking at all of the plants because I miss them so much. But they all reminded me of things because I had all these memories associated with them. And I had all these memories associated with, the volcano and all of these random turns in the road and stuff like that. That it's just, they're inextricably linked, unfortunately. I think even if everybody stopped living there, not even just everybody I knew, but just like nobody lived there ever again, and I went and visited, I still wouldn't be able to stay there because those memories would still be an issue. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. It's one of those things that I've written several poems about that are probably a lot better at explaining it than I ever could in plain language, just because of the nature of the beast. Cool and also scary. Fair enough. I guess most people do not grow up under an active volcano, and so it would definitely be a different association with that sort of thing. I really liked it, though. I thought it was awesome. You said I'm not able. Oh, that's valid. And you said you aren't able to get back there to appreciate the natural beauty, at least. Yeah, that's the problem. You can't imagine being that close to a volcano. We hiked up that volcano for school. Like, my middle school was at the base of it, not even a mile away. We hiked up it in PE class all the time. Like, I didn't just live directly below it. I went up it often. But it felt safe. Like, yes, I knew technically it could blow, and I might not have enough warning to get away from it, but it also kind of felt like everything was like that, and at least the volcano was being honest, Like, walking on the side of the street is something that's so mundane to most of us that it doesn't feel scary. But if you think about it, a car could at any time jump the curb and kill you at any time with no warning. Um, and that could happen to anyone, and it has happened many times. But we don't really think about it that way because we're used to it. Um, that's sort of how it was when I lived there for me. Like this great danger that we really got used to. Um, and it helped that it's a very beautiful volcano and a very beautiful area. But it makes me think of there's those stories of people who live in radioactive zones, mostly taking care of animals or doing environmental stewardship, even though they know, I mean, in that case, it's going to kill them. The radiation is going to kill them. But they probably still manage to feel pretty normal and live what feels like fairly normal lives, even if to outsiders, if it looks quite different. It's kind of a similar thing. Like, yes, it is inherently probably a pretty bad idea and fairly dangerous, but it gets so normal that when you leave, you start to miss it. Several times. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the only thing you could do in PE that wasn't being in a big, boring room. So, yeah, we hiked up it quite a few times. More times than I could count, like quite a few times. More times than I could count, like it was a common occurrence. We never hiked up to the rim though. And like it's not like I ever saw it smoking. It did smoke. Um, Never that I saw, but I heard about it. And in the recent past, when I was a kid living there, it had smoked several times. But yeah, I don't know. You guess you get that. You live in an area known for tornadoes, but they feel mundane despite the danger. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Like, to me, a tornado would be fucking terrifying. I've never seen a tornado before. I've heard a little bit about them, and I know, like, maybe the sky changes color to like this sickly green from what I've heard, and they can just sort of destroy your everything, which sounds terrifying to me. But if you grew up with it, and if you grew up with the like tornado alarms and everything, they're probably just kind of just a fact of life. But I think everybody has something, like every area and every person has something like that. Some distinct danger that we've managed to normalize just out of necessity. One drawback to talk about spinning again for a moment. One drawback of rolling these loosely is that it's even harder to get the VM out. When I was rolling them around the knitting needles, sometimes the VM would work its way out when I was spinning just from spinning it. Not often, but sometimes. And they would sometimes work its way out at least a little bit more. But at the moment, it's like just because it's never really being pulled or anything like that, it just stays exactly where it is, and you have to manually pick out each piece. And I have found that it is, you don't want that stuff in there. Like, once it's knit up, you feel it. You don't feel the seed pods, but you do feel the like. Oh no, you don't feel the tiny crushed bits of seed pods that look kind of like vanilla beans, like vanilla bean seeds. Oh, hi, Chuck. Oh, she's carrying my shoe around in despair again. Chuck, come here. Come here. So sad. Just come here. She'll go into the other room and then forget that I'm there and then wander around in despair. Poor guy. It's so sad. I forgot what I was talking about. I'm not going to lie. Oh yeah, it doesn't work its way out. So I feel like I have to deal with more VM this way, but it also feels fast enough that even with all the pauses to remove VM, it's still faster, or at least it feels that way. So I'm sure I'll keep doing this, but poor baby, exactly. She's got such a hard life of luxury. Chuck, I'm almost done, I promise. It is 4 minutes to 2 hours. So, oh, Chuck, in the interest of not having a bunch of extra stream where you can't hear me over Chuck's sad yowling, we will probably call it now that I've finished this bit. Oh, Chuck. Yeah, I promise. We're almost done. I kind of have to. I'm being forced to by Chuck. He will understand, I'm sure. She's so sad looking right now. Yeah, about VM I can't get out. Yeah. I'm hoping some of it will work its way out with washing, but I kind of doubt it at this point. But anyway, so that was, I mean, I think that's a decent amount that we spun all in one go. It's definitely way more than we spun last stream. And there's still 5 poonies left. So we got a head start on making them for the next stream, which hopefully will be tomorrow. I'd like to get back to the frequent streams. I just needed a break for a little bit. Understandable, you don't want to make Chuck sad. Yeah. All right. Thank you for for understanding Chuck's huge, incredibly round eyes and sad little noises. Thanks for hanging out on stream. As always, it is much nicer when I get to talk to people and like chat and stuff. It's really enjoyable for me as well. So yeah, thanks for hanging out. I feel like we got a good amount done, and I'm gonna wash this and we will see how usable this avocado dyed stuff is. But yeah, thanks for this stream as well. Have a good night.